Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the GA Lean Body Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Keane, strength and conditioning coach and sports nutritionist, here to help you with everything GA related fitness. Today's episode, we bring on a guest, first one in a while, somebody who I'm super close with. Gaz is a good friend of mine. He is currently working for me as my executive assistant and has a side hustle, which is a Gaz Gaelic guide on Instagram, where he is smashing out amazing GA content with nutrition, training and mindset misconceptions and how to help you when it comes to improving your GA performance. And in today's podcast, we go deep on two very important topics. One is an effective carb load between games, or effective carb loads in general. And the other is how to avoid the training mistakes of doing too much in the lead up to games and everything in between. So we talk on Gaz's background, what got him into GA coaching, the biggest nutrition misconceptions we both see, and how to effectively carb load based on your height, weight, and current training or match schedules, and then the training mistakes that he sees and doing too much in the lead up to games, and how to train around it so that you can either improve your performance or get the most out of whatever it is you're trying to improve for, whether it's just specific training sessions or matches and games and everything in between. We cover quite a lot in today's podcast, so I hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed recording it. Loads of value here for anybody that is looking to improve their performance for GA. So without further ado, here is Gaz's Gaelic guide on effective carb loads and the biggest GA training mistakes. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the GA Lean Body Podcast. I am delighted to have my first guest in quite a while, somebody who I am very close to, who I am very close friends with, who I've been helping, I'd like to say, a little bit with the business side of things when it comes to GA and helping and serving loads of players in a nutrition, training and mindset aspect when it comes to their performance. And that is Gaz's Gaelic guide from Instagram, Gary O'Daly. Gary, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a million, Brian, and hopefully you're not too upset that this is digging into our company time.
just to give a little bit of background for people listening, Gaz does all my work that is email based. He helps with show notes on the podcast, like indispensable. Like I've named two things there, Gaz, but you probably have a job list of about 15 things that you do regularly. So you're an indispensable member of the team at the minute. So I really, really appreciate all you do. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about GA, because one of the things you've been doing over the last 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months and beyond is really helping to serve GA players when it comes to training, nutrition, supplements, mindset, and your Instagram page is growing as a result of that, because you're helping so many players either coaching or with your online content. So before we kind of dive into that, talk a little bit about your background when it came to particularly setting up the Instagram page, Gaz's Gaelic guide, and kind of getting into GA specific coaching. Talk about that, and then we'll transition out into different tips and tricks when it comes to nutrition and training for GA players.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I suppose I've been playing GA my whole life. I think I went to my first under 10 training when I was about 4. The jersey was coming down to below my ankle, so I've been playing it my whole life. And I'm from North Roscommon at a club called St. Ronan, so I've been lucky enough to represent Roscommon at underage level, from under 14 up to minor level. Now, I didn't quite make the championship panel at minor, but I kind of have that background of underage strength and conditioning and training. So it's always been an aspect that I would always like to explore and want to better myself as a player. Our club growing up now, we would have been, we would have been a rural club. It's hard to get numbers compared to some of the big teams, and we always would have been at the lower divisions. So any edge that I could get for my own personal development, I was looking to get that. So I was always interested in the newer kind of strength and conditioning side of things, nutrition side of things. Now I have done the wrong things a lot of the time, but I've learned on the opposite side of that. And so coming from that, then I made a controversial call to transfer to a different club. I transferred to St. Mary's in Carrick and Shannon in 2016. We got relegated to junior with St. Ronan's. And at the time, I was a bit young and naive, and I didn't quite understand the value of a club and community at that stage. And I went for my own selfish needs, wanting to win a championship and wanting to play senior football. And as I was saying about the training side of things, that was something that I learned from the long run about how important the club aspect is as well of GAA. If there's anyone who's thinking about moving away, maybe have a second thought about the club and people you grew up with and stuff. That was something that kind of, we might get into on the mindset side of things on this chat, but something that I kind of learned the hard way about how important the club was. But as I moved over to St. Mary's, I was unfortunate enough to do my cruciate. That might have been a bit of karma for leaving the club, but I did my cruciate. Was from that then I was rebuilding from ground zero, so I was coming off doing bodybuilding workouts, and this is something you've talked about loads yourself, about doing the incorrect workouts for my goal. So my goal wasn't to be a bodybuilder, my goal was to improve my performance on the pitch, and I was doing workouts that weren't aiding me to do that. So I was going in, doing 3 sets of 10 to 12 on the leg extensions and leg curls, and I wasn't understanding why my hamstrings kept pulling, and I wasn't doing any plyometrics at all. So looking back on it, if I was doing the training I'm doing now, I possibly may not have done my cruciate, just for the load aspect of it and just the jumping and everything. But look, things happen and we learn from it. Coming back from that, I actually got in contact with yourself, and I came through the GAA Lean Body program. And I think one of the things that really stood out to me from even before I got on the program, I'd messaged you, I think it was an email or Snapchat or Facebook at the time, and I wasn't fully clear back from the physio. I think one of the things that stood out to me was you had said this program isn't right for you at this moment, that you wouldn't get the benefit from it because you wouldn't be able to do all the workouts. You wouldn't be able to do the jumping side of things and the strength and conditioning side of things. And that's something that stood to me as like, right, you're not just doing this because you want to make a quick couple of €100 here or whatever and just get as much money from people and not care about them as a person. That really stood out to me as like, right, okay, this person obviously understands injuries, understands GAA, and wants me to get the best thing from his program. So that's something that I've taken on to with my own clients as well. If people are coming to me with injuries at the moment, it's like, right, have you got the all clear from your physio? Because if you haven't, you're not really going to get the full benefit from a program. And that's something that I think a lot of, especially younger people who want to come back from injury really quick and want to get as good as they can coming back from an injury, be patient. Wait till you get the full clear from a physio before coming back onto a gym plan, whether that's with myself, with Brian, or with X, Y, and Z, wherever the coach may be. So obviously coming back from that, coming through your plan, which completely opened my eyes to a new style of training. I was kind of coming through the underage system, like from 2008 to 2011, 2012. And if you look back at GA at that time, like it was nearly the bigger you are, the better you are. And I suppose that's kind of led into a lot of the bodybuilding style workouts in GA around that time. There wasn't a whole pile of plyometrics and mobility kind of stuff. So when I was coming through your program then, it kind of opened my eyes to, right, this is a really good way of training. I'm kind of feeling a lot more loose on the pitch as well, and not as rigid and not as stiff. And I really wanted to know as much as I could about strength and conditioning, about improvement. Nutrition was a massive thing that I didn't realize. Like I used to be eating, tins of beans, thinking I was going to get jacked. Like there's this other kind of just nutrition things you hear underage, you hear from a manager or a coach who you wouldn't really necessarily be a nutrition coach, but because they say it and underage, it sticks with you. And then kind of unlearning some of these, not false claims, but unlearning some of these nutrition things that you would have been done for years, and kind of realizing, the likes of carb loading, carb cycling, just how to do different kind of things, different calories, what that's in things, and the nutritional makeup of foods, and what served me best as well. So that was another thing, is like what works for me, as opposed to just because Mick or John or Tom is eating this way, I have to eat that way as well. That mightn't serve me right. So I needed to find what worked well for me and then double down on that. So that was something that really, I was learning so much from it. I think I must have redone the program, the phase 1 and phase 2. I must have cycled through that 2 or 3 times. And then I started learning to do my own side of things then, because I was that interested in it. I went off, and on the side, I did a PT course. So my professional background was I did biomedical science in college. I was working in the pharma industry for 5 years or so, and I enjoying the work. It was fine. As they say, it's comfortable, but you don't grow if you're comfortable. So this was an area I was doing on the side. I was doing courses, going to seminars like yourself and David Drake, learning as much as I could about strength and conditioning and nutrition. And eventually the opportunity arose. It kind of came from being bored. So I broke my hand. It was summer of 2019, and I was working in a chemistry lab. So I was doing testing, and I wasn't able to do my job because I was in a cast for 3 or 4 weeks. And by the time I got out of the cast, I was able to go back training. I was able to tape up my hand and use straps in the gym, and it wasn't affecting me, but I wasn't able to do my day-to-day job because the instruments are quite finicky, and it's a lot of handheld instruments, and whatever way I was using them, it was hurting my hand. And like, it was a case of like, I'm not going to hurt myself for a job here. There's other things I can do. It was going to be very boring. I was at a desk for, I'd say, 4 weeks in a 75, 80% lab-based job. So I was going off my head. I was like, right, I'm going to have to do something here to keep myself occupied, because I'm going into a rut here, going to work, going to the gym and going home, and sitting on my arse watching Netflix and YouTube for 2 or 3 hours and then going to bed. And like, it was a very boring life, and I wasn't enjoying it. I was like, I'm going to have to do something else here that's going to, keep occupying me and have something to grow and work towards. And I had the PT set at that stage. I'd done these courses, and I was like, right, feck it, I'm just going to start an Instagram page. I'm doing the training already. I'm eating this way already. It's like, the worst thing that happens is I put up a few posts, people slag me, make fun of me, and then nothing takes off, and I'm back to where I am anyway. But luckily enough, once I started putting stuff up, it got taken pretty well. People took it up and asking questions, and it kind of starts off with friends and family first. Just kept doing it and kept putting stuff up, and people, questions you'd get from club members and friends, it kind of address that on the page then. So if people were wondering what's a good hamstring exercise, and like then I put up a good hamstring exercise, more people would see that, they tag their friends or whatever, and you kind of get a little kind of a small community at the start. I suppose that's like one of the main things if anyone is looking to start a fitness page or a business page, or trying to get down the PT route. Like, you're going to have to be patient. You're not going to start a page and have 1,000 followers overnight. If you do see someone who has 1,000 followers in a week of a page start, and you're going to have to question if they're real people or if they're paying for followers as well. So it's the value of your content is going to be different to someone else's. So just because there's a million PTs out there doesn't mean someone's not going to listen to you. And that's something I've taken from yourself as well. It's great advice. So I just kept at it, and like I was still working away I was working in Pfizer, who are a hot topic at the moment with the vaccines and everything. And I was working away, I was doing my 9 to 5, and on the side of that then I was occupying myself on the weekends and the evenings doing stuff for the page, Gaz Gaelic Guide. And that name came about. It was just kind of I always appreciate alliteration, and there's so many, Gary O'Daly PT or Gary O'Daly Fitness out there. Now, I know you've been in the game a long time, so you're probably one of the originators of the name of Brian Keane Fitness, but I didn't want to copy someone else's name. So I thought Gaz Gaelic Guide has a nice ring to it, kind of has a niche market that's where I want to give advice to. That's my own background is GAA. So I thought it was a nice little name, and it kind of stuck with me. I thought about changing it a few times, but like at this stage now, I think everyone really recognizes the name and the logo and the colors and stuff. So I kind of kept with the name and just kept going from there, really. And was always trying to improve, reading books, recently started listening to audiobooks as well and podcasts. I was always trying new ways and new things that are going to improve me, test them out myself before I'd ever put them up on the page. So I test a lot of stuff out myself, see what I find works well, then I can put this up on the page and look at, this is a workout that I thought worked really well for me, whether that's going to be in season or off season or pre-season or pre-game, whatever the case may be, and just try different type of training. Like, there's no one size fits all, and I understand that now at this stage of my training career, that there's so many different types of training. So I'm going to try and cover as much as I can. There might be one particular workout that works really, really well for someone, and someone might find, well, that I didn't find that good. I didn't really feel it where he said he felt it, so I'm not really going to work on that one. But he's another workout up here when he's doing something different, so I might try that one. So it's trying to always give a different approach to trainings as well, and not just have like a one track mind of this is the best way to work out just because I thought it worked well. I know that just because I think it works well, some people might not find the same way. I think that's a good tip as well for anyone in this personal training or coaching, that just because you find it well, or you have one client who finds it really well, not everyone is going to find it really well. So it's been open to different kinds of training and different kinds of approaches to whether that's game prep, nutrition, diet, so many different types of things that I'm always trying to expand and learn on. I suppose in a long-winded answer, that's from where I started to where I am now.
Yeah, that gives us loads to dive into as well. And again, as someone that knows you for several years at this point now, Gaz, I can speak to the amount of professional and personal development you do. I think that's how we became friends initially, was through the GA Lean Body program, and then we met in person, and then you went to the mindset seminar, then you were through the online business course, and just because of the repetition and working together for so long, we became friends. And I think I told you this already, but I haven't said it online. When I had a position coming up, as my executive assistant to help with all the things I was doing, I advertised that, but I went to you and I'm like, the job is yours, Gary, if you want it. And that is from the way that you are in terms of how you're always developing professionally, personally. And again, it helps knowing the inside of my business to help with Gaz's Gaelic Guide. And I think that's why you're providing so much value to people as well, because you're putting yourself out there, you're putting out great content that is very specific to, well, this is what I'm doing, but here's what you should do because this is your circumstance. I think that's what makes you a very effective coach when you're working with GA players. So I want to unpack a few things there when it comes to misconceptions in particular. When I think of nutrition, you mentioned there eating Tom, John or Mike and hoping you'll get the same results. I had some of the worst misconceptions around nutrition when I was a GA player. I remember my dad would tell me that, he would eat grapes to lose body fat, in the in-season during championship. And I'm like, oh yeah, grapes, brilliant fat loss food, as opposed to realizing that he went from eating Supermax and McDonald's to grapes. I was like, of course you lost a load of weight when you were doing that in the middle of championship. So without the context of the advice that's being given to you, it's very easy to get misconceptions. I used to always eat sausage and beans before games because I read in Men's Fitness magazine once that it has all the essential amino acids. And I'm like, beans on toast, sausage, beans and toast. And thinking that was going to be a good fueling source, but not having basic concepts of nutrition. So with that, Gaz, when it comes to nutrition, what's the biggest misconception you generally see? And again, you can speak to this. You've been through my nutrition course. You educate yourself with books that you're reading, audiobooks that you're reading. But from your experience of working with GA players and the questions you get on the page, what's the single or one or two biggest nutrition misconceptions that you generally see?
From my experience anyway, it seems to be people are still under the impression that eating a big breakfast the morning of a game is enough to get them through a game. And sometimes people understand, like, I was really tired during the game, my legs were really heavy, but like I had a big bowl of porridge for breakfast. But that might be the only kind of added carbs they did have in their day. They mightn't have a whole carb-based diet in general, and thinking that just one bowl of porridge, not even weighed out. Like I know with the microwavable porridge, you get the little scoop in there, and you might like add a little bit of scoops in. Like it might only be something like 60 grams of oats in the morning of a game, whereas normally you'd have 40, and that's the only kind of extra carbs you'd add. That seems to be, from my experience so far, a big misconception about carb loading, that they think eating loads a day of a game, or recently I've got people saying that they would carb load the day of a game. So if their game was at 7 o'clock, they'd start carb loading that morning. Then come during the game, they're saying, my stomach was I felt really sluggish, my stomach was a bit funny, and I was still finding my legs are really heavy. Whereas like they haven't got the benefits of a carb load because they haven't done it the day before. They've ate loads of food during the day, so during the game, that's all rolling around, that's all moving around their stomach when they're running around, and that's obviously going to make them feel funny. They're going to feel sluggish because they haven't got the benefits of the carb load. Like looking from, like obviously coming from the nutrition course and your plan as well, I really understood the basis of a carb load. So just for people, what a carb load is, basically you eat loads of carbs the day before a game to give you lots of energy for a game. And a good rule of thumb is to have 6 to 8 grams of carbs per kilo of body weight. That's a one I go off, and I find that works really well. So just for example, if you're, just with the easiest way to put it, if you're 100 kilos, you'd be trying to eat 600 to 800 grams of carbs during the day. Now, obviously, if your weight is different, it's going to be a different value. But just for simplicity's sake, 100 kilos, you're trying to eat 600 grams of carbs to 800 grams of carbs. So there's a little window there, whether you're on the upper end or lower end, that's completely up to yourself and your diet. And just with carb loading as well, just because you're eating carbs, not all carbs are 100% carbs. So it's obviously the different food is made up of proteins, fats, and all the different kind of macros. So just because you have 100 grams of potatoes or pasta or rice, that doesn't mean you're having 100 grams of carbs, because there's different breakdowns of food, and there's different percentages of carbs, fats, and all the other micronutrients in foods as well. So just be aware of that. So I like to tell people to use like a fitness tracker or a food tracker, like MyFitnessPal. Loads of them out there, just to put the food in, even just for the day of a carb load, just so as enough you're getting enough carbs, like not even a calorie counting point of view, but just to make sure you're getting enough carbs. Put the food in, like you're having bagels or pasta, rice, sweet potatoes, just to see how much carbs is in those foods and how much you're using, and really getting into the habit of weighing stuff out to make it work for you. So like obviously going off the weight is going to be completely different for everyone else. So my carb load, I know I put stuff up on my page about what my carb load looks like, but I'm 80 kilos and I'm 5'9". If you're 6'2" and you're 95 kilos, your carb load is going to look different to mine. Or if you're 5'6" and 70 kilos, again, yours is going to look different. So just because I do it or Brian does it or someone else has their carb load up on the page doesn't mean you have to eat exactly what they do. I'm just trying to show what I have, maybe give you a meal ideas, like, I didn't think about having that, or bagels and a banana. I've had that before and I'm never full, but there's added carbs in that, and if I have that, in between my snack and a meal, that's extra carbs. I don't feel too full after it. I digest that quite well, and then the next day, then all those carbs are added up, and you're going to have loads of energy for the game. And again, that's something that I didn't know until I came through your plan. And someone who I've had a chat with before on my page, Aina Madden, who is an athletic, represents Ireland athletics, he had a great point, and it was, if you're feeling really tired in your legs, it's more than likely a nutrition issue. If you're feeling really tired in your lungs, that's down to fitness. So if you're listening to this and your championship is coming around the corner, and you're having a few challenge games now and you're feeling it in your legs, and if your legs are going towards the end of a game, that might just be a nutrition issue. So if you're thinking, I have to do extra running sessions now, or I have to go into the gym and do loads of squats or deadlifts or whatever, that might not be what you need to do. It might just be something as simple as eating way more carbs the day before a game, and then you'll feel really fresh in your legs coming into the end of a game. Whereas if you feel like you need to do more fitness work because you've heavy legs, that might be putting you further down, having more tired legs because you're not fueling right for games. You're doing more work to try and compensate that, which means you're using more energy, which means then you need more calories and carbs, and you're just going down this endless cycle of trying to chase something that might not be an issue. But if the case is now that you're feeling really tired in your lungs and you feel like you're going to cough up your heart at some stage, that might just be fitness. And that might be a case where, okay, I might have to do an extra conditioning session or do some cardio work at the end of my gym work. But if I've heavy legs, that's one of the main thing that I found with my own personal experience and from people coming to the page, is carb loading the day before or even 2 days before starting. Like if your game was on a Saturday evening, maybe starting on a Thursday evening, all day Friday, and then like a Saturday morning, you have so much carbs already, you just kind of have a light bit of snack. If you're someone who gets quite nervous around games, having a big meal beforehand might not be the best thing for you. So having a light breakfast and a light snack or two before a game, that might be work really good for you. Or if you're someone that's like, right, I've had loads here and I'm feeling too full going into a game, maybe just doing the Friday carb load and then having normal food then on a Saturday morning leading into a Saturday evening game could work really well for you. And obviously with any nutrition strategy or new supplements or new meals or anything like that, always test them before training or a challenge game or even a league game at least. Never try anything new before a championship game. As Brian, I think when I had you on my page, you had a story of a friend who tried a new supplement before a game and had to run into the jacks during the game. So test these out in training and games. Like you don't want to test something new before a championship. Like championship should be when you have everything sorted and like your routine is set. Like it's nearly regimented in you that like, okay, I'm going to do this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to eat this on Friday for the game on Saturday, and I'm going to recover on Sunday. It isn't a time, in my opinion anyway, to be testing new things out and trying new things out. It should be a case that you've tried and tested through the pre-season, through the league, then come championship, you kind of know what works well for you, whether that's nutrition side of things or training side of things, and it should just be regimented, and it shouldn't even be a second thought that that's what you do coming into championship. So I suppose the carb loading side of things would be the main kind of pain point that I hear from people on my page.
Yeah, I love that, and you've given me the title for the podcast on an effective carb load for sure, because I think it's something that a lot of players grossly misunderestimate, either how many carbs they need or how to do it effectively. You know, I've had a lot of players, when they see the breakdown and say the GA Lean Body Program, I know your plans are the same, where they'll see that there's 150 grams of sweet potato and it's got 30 grams of carbs, and they're like, there's only 30 grams of carbs in that? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, so the food, and people make the mistake, then they think that they're effectively carb loading because they're eating, some potatoes at dinner, or they're having a bowl of oats, as you said, on the morning. That's a big thing that a lot of GA players do. They think that, what should I eat before a game, as opposed to thinking about the 24 to 48, even 72 hour window before, based on, how well you tolerate carbs, how, your size. Obviously, somebody that's bigger is going to have to experiment a little bit more in terms of, do they need to do multiple days of carb load to be effectively fueled for a game? So you're experimenting with all these things. I know you do this with clients that you work with, Gaz, and I think that legs versus lungs is a big thing. I've definitely made note of that I would always tell my players, if your legs are off, it's normally a nutrition issue. But I didn't think of the legs versus lungs. Like if your lungs, that's going to be your general fitness. I like that kind of very easy and simple way to remember it. So I think that's really helpful for people. Also, the story, just to recap, that Gaz mentioned was when I was we were playing a freshers game. I went to my undergraduate in Sligo IT, and we were playing on the first team on the freshers, and I was playing wing forward number 10, and I had a lad inside me. I won't mention his name just in case he's listened to the podcast or friends listen to the podcast, but he was playing inside me at 13, and he had tried this new supplement before the game, and it was a championship game. And about 20 minutes in, he was asking the manager, he's like, look, you need to take me off. And they're like, why? He was like, I need to go to the toilet. And they're like, no. He's like, it's nearly half time. And then it got to 25 minutes. And he's like, look, I need to go. He's like, no. He goes, we're not taking you off. It's nearly half time. And he sprinted the far side of the pitch all the way down to the dressing room, the fucking fastest I've ever seen him run, like into the jacks. Then when he came out, we came in at half time. And it was just like, Do you know when you've had like amazing sex and you just come out and it's kind of like, everything's good. That was his look on his face. And yeah, he went back out in the second half then. I was like, fair play. I was like, powering through. But yeah, just don't experiment, particularly with supplements, but foods as well, because they can have a similar reaction in terms of the issue on the digestive tract. So I wouldn't experiment anything new, especially before championship, just to retell that story. With the legs versus lungs then, when it comes to the training element and the fitness side, Gaz, what's the biggest, you mentioned earlier about obviously the bodybuilding training for sports specific performance for GA, football, hurling, ladies football, camogie, you know, the mistakes I made as well. Is the biggest mistakes you see on your page people doing the wrong exercise choices or the wrong programs, building muscle, trying to do bodybuilding work, or do you see something different when it comes to training mistakes GA players make?
Yeah, it's similar to that, and I suppose a lot of people are more clued into the bodybuilding isn't ideal for GA at this stage. I think back when I was coming up through your plan a couple of years ago, I think it was more common that people were doing more bodybuilding workouts. I think now people are more aware of it, so you don't see as much kind of people doing leg extensions for GAA. And I say as much, that just from my experience, people seem to be clued in that, you know, more kind of involving their body in as much as they can. So there might be split squats or lunges instead of, you know, leg extensions, which is great to see. But I think especially around championship and around in season, it's the volume. I think people are still they're doing way too much volume on work in season, and they're feeling tired then in their legs during games, and that I think is something that is still quite common. So anyone I've been chatting to, you know, they'll be explaining, or if you're asking them about programs and you're bringing them on for a call or anything like that, it's like they're still doing like their 3 sets of 12 or even 15 reps on certain leg exercises, and they're training twice a week and playing the game on the weekend. As like, and they're like, oh, my legs, I need to work on my legs because my legs are really tired. It's like, again, coming back to the nutrition side of things. But if you're going in and you're like doing 3 sets of 10 on squats, and then you're doing 3 sets of 12 on lunges, and then you're doing 3 sets of 12 on RDLs, and then you're going out to play training the next day and you've been training the day before, like eventually, like if something is going to give, you're working legs too much. Whereas if you lower the reps slightly in season, like it doesn't even just a misconception as well. When people hear lower reps, you're not doing the same weight for lower reps. I think that can't be highlighted enough as well. If you're doing 12 reps and someone says you need to be doing less reps, that doesn't mean you still have the 2 10-kilo dumbbells in each hand doing less reps. You can up the weight and do less reps and still get a really effective workout, and it won't leave your legs as tired, as sore, and you're kind of building strength as well as power, depending on your parameters and what the exercise is. But that's something that I think people might not understand. Like if people are saying to do less reps, it doesn't always mean you're doing the same weight for less reps. And I think people are like, oh, well, I want to get big, I want to get strong, I'm not going to do, you know, a back squat for 40 kilos for 8 reps instead of 12 because I want to get big and strong. You can up the weight. Of course you can up the weight. Like if you're doing 6 to 8 reps instead of 10 to 12, if you're doing less volume, but you can up the weight slightly. Now, it doesn't mean a case that you're upping the weight, that you're maxing out at 6 reps and you're trying to get 8 and you're nearly falling about the place. You have to be smart. A good rule that I like to use, especially in season, is, I'm not sure if people have used the RPE scale, it's the rate of perceived exhaustion. So just say an RPE 10 would be you cannot do any more. So if you're doing 10 reps on a bench press, the 10th rep is nearly impossible to get up. You just about get it up, and if you try to do an 11th rep, you'd fail. Like that, you'd need a spotter there for the 11th rep. So that's the difference. So just say if the reps or the rep set is 5, if you do an RPE of 8, that means that you can do 7 reps, and the 7th rep is your absolute maximum. I like to work in an RPE of kind of 7 to 8 in season, and coming into the week of a game even at 6. So that would mean if I'm doing 5 reps on a bench press, I have 3 to 4 reps left in the tank for every set. You're still working strength, you're still working power if you're doing explosive reps, but like, it's not a case that I could do 12 reps and I'm doing nothing. I'm just like, I could look around and have a conversation when I'm bouncing the chair or the bar off my chest. You're still working, you still have to focus on the weight that you're lifting, but there's some reps left in the tank as well. So you're kind of fresh, you're still getting the benefits of the exercise, especially with legs. Like if you're using an RPE of 6 to 7 the week of a game, like if you're doing a trap bar deadlift and you're doing 3 to 5 reps, but you know yourself, if I really wanted to max out here, I could get 7 or 8 reps, but I'm going to keep it at 5. I'm going to stay fresh. I've got 5 really good reps in, really powerful, really quick, but I know if I really wanted to max out here, I could get 7 or 8, but I'm going to leave it there now. I've got the benefits I want. And if you're super set in that, like a jump, or I've loads of different kind of exercises on my reels, and if anyone wants to check them out, different kinds of stuff. But the RPE scale is definitely something I think people should look more into, especially in season, especially coming into championship, where you're not maxing out. You're not doing 3 sets of 10 and the 10th rep is impossible to get up nearly. Work smarter, like reduce the weight slightly where you're getting 10 reps or whatever your rep scales you're following, or if it's 5 or 6 or so, whatever it is, that you have a couple left in the tank. And I think that's something that I found work really well for me, and the athletes that are coming through my plan. It's definitely, because I can, on the app that I use, I can definitely see the weights are increasing each week. Like I think I had a guy on the off season, I think he'd put nearly 20 kilos onto his bench press from his first week to the 6th week, just simply because of using the RPE scale. He was going in, he was maxing out every week and couldn't understand why his bench press wasn't going up. Whereas if you reduce the effort and slowly increase the weight, and even with weight increases, going back to kind of pre-season and off-season kind of training, weight increases on a deadlift or a bench or squat, wherever the case may be, it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't mean you have to put on 10 kilos each week onto your bench press or squat. Like putting on a 1.25 kg plate onto each side after 3 weeks, you count that over the year. Like that's going to be massive increases over the year. Like weight increases doesn't need to be drastic and doesn't need to be going up 10, 20 kilos in a lift each week. Something as small as 2.5 kilos every 3 weeks is still progression. And I think that's something that comes down back to the patient side of things. And I know with younger players, and I've been through it myself, where you want to put on as much weight as possible, you want to get as big as possible, and you want to get as strong as possible. But if you're 16, 17, 18, you're starting in the gym, you have to realize how long you're going to be playing, how long you're going to be going to the gym, and just try and train smarter around that. Again, coming back to the question, the biggest kind of the issues that people are having, I think, is they're going too high in the volume side of things in training, and they're going too hard, especially in championship weeks. Whereas if they reduce the effort, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a bad training. They could have a fantastic training session in 45 minutes where they're using an RPE scale, as I was saying, of having a 6 to 7 instead of a 9 to 10, where then on the next day they go train, like, geez, I'm feeling really fresh now, I'm feeling really powerful. And I wonder why, because you're not maxing out in the gym, but you're still doing the work. You're working on your jumps, you're working on your deadlifts or squats, wherever the case may be. And it's kind of priming the body then for when you're sprinting or when you're running and jumping in games. You're not too tired then, and it's not too taxing on even the CNS and the central nervous system as well. Whereas if you're loading up the weight and you're maxing out in every lift, and then you're wondering why you're tired in training, take a look at the rest of your week as well, I suppose, is the long-winded answer again to your question.
Such great advice though, Gaz, because I think that people fall on different sides of the spectrum in terms of their training intensity, but the majority of GA players tend to push themselves, and the downside of not having a plan or a program or working with a coach or coming through a program specifically, whether that's mine, yours, another coach, there's loads of great coaches out there, is you're doing 100%, but you're going in the wrong direction with what you're doing, and that leads to a decreased performance or potentially an increased risk of injury. For me, that was always my downside when I was playing, is I could smash out a gym workout in the morning, like literally leave it all behind, and then go play a game Saturday evening, and I'd get injured. And you'd wonder at the time, you're like, how am I getting injured all the time? You're like, well, you smashed the gym this morning, like your body is broken, and now you're trying to twist, turn and take hits when you're at 60% of where you should be. And it's very easy for players to get caught up in that it's all about going heavy and it's all about smashing your workouts every single time. Whereas, in the off season, you can have a lot more leeway with what you do. You can max out more if that's what you enjoy to do, provided you're doing it in a safe and constructive way with good form. And you can, have higher volume in your workouts, because you're not trying to peak for a game, a league game or a championship game or even a challenge game where you're just trying to improve your performance. So I think looking at your season, as Gaz said there, as a whole and a bigger picture is important, because you always want to ask, well, what's your primary focus right now? You do this, Gary, and I do it as well. My GA players in championship, I'm like, well, look, the workouts are going to support championship, but the goal is to keep the performance at its highest level for championship. In the off season, then that flips, where you're like, okay, well, what do we need to bring up? What are your primary goals? Do you want to get fitter, faster, stronger? What are your secondary goals? Do you want to build muscle? Do you want to lose body fat? Do you want to, get a six pack? Well, there's all the loads of goals people will have, and you have way more leeway in that off season. But I think the message there is take a wider perspective. If you're a younger player, look at the season as a whole, look at your training as a whole, and even if you're a seasoned athlete, same idea. adjust your training, adjust your nutrition to fit what you're trying to do within that week, within that month, within that season, or the off season as the case may be, and then make the adjustments accordingly. Gaz, I've loved this podcast. Again, some great stuff here on effective carb loads, which I think is a big tool that nearly every player listening here can adopt straight away, and they can start to see that improvement in performance. And the same with the training, especially around kind of championship, and again going into next season. I know we're going into the kind of the off season now with a lot of teams based on that August, September, October window, how it's going to fall. But for next year, people will have a lot more of an idea on how to do their training coming into championship. But for Gaz, everybody listening who has really connected with what you've said here and want to reach out to you, either to follow on the page on Instagram, which is Gaz_Gaelic_guide, if I'm not mistaken in terms of the handle, but want to reach out to you to potentially work with you in coaching, any links you want to give, please do that now, mate.
Yeah, as you said there, the Instagram page is the best place to get me. And if you want to book a call, if you don't want to DM, if you want more information and more detailed chat, I have a Calendly link in my bio. So if you want to book a call, hop on a Zoom chat, and kind of go through. If you have more questions and you really want a little bit more, you can go do that way. Or if you want to just go a DM is as good as any place to get me at the moment as well.
Amazing. And for everybody listening, I will link Gaz's Instagram in the description, and I'll link the Calendly as well, so you can go straight on through, book in a call if you think he's going to be a good fit for you. Go check out the page regardless. You'll get loads of value from that. Gaz, thank you so much for all that you do, just for me in general, but thanks so much for the value on here as well, mate. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks a million for having me on, and thanks for hiring me.
No problem. There you have it. That is Gaz Gaelic Guide to Garo Daily on effective carb loads and the biggest GAA training mistakes. Hopefully you got loads from today's podcast. Again, so much value in here, particularly when it comes to effective carb loads and how to avoid the training mistakes of doing too much in the lead up to games. So as always, if you did, be sure to take a screenshot, pop it up on your Instagram. You can tag myself and Gary on there. Let us know how you found it. That's everything from this month's podcast. Catch you all next month.